Good morning, Dr. Taylor Burrowes here. Now, if you want to reach me on my website to find out more, you can find it at drtaylorburrowes.com. Don't forget the E. So this is my first YouTube live streaming video. I'm very excited to finally get up and running with 1,000 subscribers. Thank you to everyone who subscribed to my channel. So I'm going to be doing some scheduled topics on Mondays. I'm not sure of the exact time, but mid-morning works for me. I don't know if it works for you. You can always leave me a comment below and let me know when is a good time for you, and I'll try to pick the best time and compromise between you and myself. I wanted to talk about slut shaming. Now, this was a big topic that I brought up ages ago, and it still is something that is embedded in the problem that we see between men and women and dating and what is preventing us from establishing healthy relationships. So slut shaming gets a bad rap, right? Everything that you say that's not sex positivist is considered slut shaming, and pointing out a man or woman's behavior as unhealthy in regards to their sexual practices. If they're doing friends with benefits, casual sex, one-night stands, non-exclusivity, all those things are kind of getting a bad name, and we need to talk about it. We need to figure out what the threshold is, get more specific. And I wanted to give you my impression of it because I posted something about sexy versus slutty that is a really important something to distinguish for us as women, because we've gotten to the point where we objectify ourselves and put our sexuality out there to the world in a very unhealthy and corrupt way. And clearly we've done this because of that sort of positivist movement where women have been encouraged to act like men. And this is not healthy. And so we need to correct this. One, we need to put a stop to the casual sex and the one-night stands and the party lifestyle and not caring about who you sleep with. It's definitely, it has a negative effect on you psychologically, and it has a negative effect on your value as a potential mate for someone in an actual serious long-term relationship. And then the other effect is that it impairs your ability to create intimacy bonds and a proper secure attachment with your potential partner in the long run anyway. So those are three major concerns that you should have when you're considering how to go about being a single person, dating, being an adult, trying to have some kind of sexual activity, and figuring out what your standards are and what your values are, and if and when you're looking for a long-term relationship. Now, I am a coach that advocates for long-term relationships, and the best way that you can find an ideal relationship is to vet properly for that partner. And I put up a list on all the platforms about my 15 ideal relationship tips. So I can put a link below. I didn't add that yet. Like I said, this is my first time doing a live stream on YouTube, so it's a test, and I'll learn how to get everything done properly. But I'll put a link to that. It's actually also an article on Reddit, so that's what spurred that. And it talks about how to go about dating as a vetting process to find that ideal partnership. And I didn't really talk much about, I didn't say anything about sexual activity there. And the reason is because people do have different preferences, and if you're a man or a woman, you might have some level, a higher level of sexual activity if you're a man than if you're a woman. So specifically when we're talking about slut shaming though, slut shaming is generally related to female behavior. So in regards to the difference between slutty and sexy, I know I've heard Rollo Tomasi, if you're not familiar with him, he wrote The Rational Male, and I heard him respond to one of the comments about that a slutty woman is not sexy, but a sexy woman can be slutty. So this is an interesting nuance, and the way that I would package it is I would explain that once you're in a safe, trusting relationship, then you can be sexually you're not really promiscuous if you're with one partner, but you can explore your sexuality in a really healthy way. And, if you want to have explicit sexual contact, whether it's sexting or phone sex, or actually when you're engaging in sexual activity with your partner, with your lover, being more adventurous, right? And so having lots of sex is a great thing and healthy when you're doing it with someone in a safe and healthy way. Now, I don't want to sound like a school teacher, but we want to get away from the idea that non-exclusivity is the only way that you can find an appropriate partner, because you don't need to have sex with multiple people in order to vet them. And so that's been a strong strategy a popular strategy that men have been using, called plate theory. And there's a misconception because it's not actually advocating for indiscriminate sex with lots and lots of women, but it does sort of imply that there is non-exclusivity and that there are multiple sexual partners, even if just a handful. So recognize that, one, in order to vet, you don't have to have that experience with everybody. You can escalate it slowly and have a process of getting to the point where you feel comfortable and you feel like there's enough trust and respect and attraction and all of the ingredients in order to escalate it to sexual activity. And if it doesn't get to that point, if you're missing some vital pieces of the equation, which my equation is logic plus desire plus love equals an ideal relationship, then you stop, you break it off, and it does not escalate. And so the great thing is that if you do it that way, you shouldn't be hurting people's feelings unnecessarily unless they're an unhealthy person, because you have done this the right way. You have done it slowly, you've taken your time, you've done your homework, you've figured out some layers of the person, and it shouldn't be personal because everybody ultimately wants to find the best fit for them. And differently, if someone is very clear about their values, saying, I'm not looking for something serious, I'm looking for something more light and fun and maybe casual and non-exclusive, then you can at least partner up with someone who's looking for the same thing. So, and that's something that plate theory is supposed to inform you to do as well, is be upfront, be honest, don't manipulate, don't lie. And the other part of that is I saw someone comment on a thread on Twitter about, it was Pat Stedman's comment against plate theory, and someone made a comment saying, oh gosh, now I'm trying to remember it. Oh no, you know what? I take that back. It was somebody else. It was Red Pill Dad, and he was making a comment about not lying to someone to get them to sleep with you. And that if you have to do that, then you're kind of a bad person. And someone came in and said, well, this is how I do it. I don't see how your strategy is going to work. And so that person, it was Nash, made a comment that, like an example of a quote, saying, well, if a woman asks you if you're sleeping with somebody else, just say, well, you know a lot of guys, I know a lot of girls, and now I want to get to know you. So I laugh because that's not being upfront. That's not disclosing your values, disclosing your intentions. And especially if you're dealing with a good woman who is trying to be, or living, not even trying, but she's living well and in a healthy way, she's going to take you at face value, think it's a joke, assume that if you didn't say, yes, I'm sleeping with other women, that you're not. And so at worst, you're going to be actually hurting someone who's good. But at best, maybe it's a girl who doesn't care and totally gets the drift, but why not then clarify it and be upfront anyway? If you see where I'm going with this. So it's really important not to do those smoke and mirrors with women because you think that makes you mysterious or it keeps her attraction, fueled. No, that's not true. Honesty is probably one of the most sexy, confident things that you can project in a relationship, and that is extremely attractive. Bobbing and weaving and avoiding responsibility for your behavior is absolutely not sexy. Only to really unhealthy people will they get a kick out of it. If that's what you want to attract, sure, go ahead. But I'm not advising that, and I don't think that reflects well on your state of health as well. So I've kind of gone all over the place talking about men being sort of sluts in regards to non-exclusivity. And let's talk for a second about women. So when we're talking about women, I've had different discussions about how many sexual partners, what is the body count that makes a woman slutty. And Alexander Cortez actually wrote a really great email yesterday about this as well. And he was saying, can a woman be reformed as a slut, and how it's contextual depending on what her body count is. Because if she had relationships for a year and she's 30, and there were a series of relationships, then she's going to have several numbers, like body count numbers. And so does that make her a slut? Probably not. But someone who is indiscriminate, who doesn't really have any type of connection or intimacy and treats her body like it's an object herself, then that's going to be considered more slutty. And I've also had all these women reach out to me in the DMs and send me pictures and say, I want to post this, Taylor. Is it sexy or is it slutty? So this is where it gets difficult with social media. So women, obviously, we want validation. Women are gonna want to be desired. They're gonna want to be thought of as beautiful. They're gonna want to be appreciated in that way. That's just part of our biology, the way that we function. So it's important for women to be healthy and know that, to be able to give themselves validation and not just seek it from random people like the public. Now, it's one thing when you have significant people in your life, if you have a boyfriend, you want to have validation from them specifically, and that person should absolutely be giving you that attention and affection and validation. Now, it shouldn't be the only way that you get your needs met, but it's definitely something, a source that is important to have from your significant other. So women who are looking for validation from Joe Schmo or the public, there's something going on there that isn't balanced, it isn't quite healthy. It doesn't mean that they're sick and disturbed or damaged necessarily, but there's absolutely more work for them to be doing so that they don't need that. And, social media in general is really creating a society where people are disconnected, people are very introverted. And, they may not be actually an introvert, but they are isolating themselves with social media, with computer games, and all of that technology. So I had someone talk to me the other day about, he was working on his being outgoing and meeting new people. And he said he forced himself to go out to a bar, and he was shocked because he wanted to engage with people, but everyone was on their phones. And so a lot of times people are giving the same sort of feedback that they go out, and it's just, everyone on their phones. So we have to recognize that people are addicted to technology, and they're getting way too much attention from thousands and millions of people. And it's also a very sensitive topic when it comes to relationships. Like when you're dating someone, what is the line being drawn when you're answering DMs to strangers or you're humoring the validation that you're getting from people online, right? So this is something that you need to bring up early on in relationships and be mindful in general as a person. You need to create boundaries for yourself and be able to do healthy things in order to feel good about yourself and not just need all of that attention from the outside sources. So when you are posting pictures and interacting like on your the stories and stuff like that, the live videos, you definitely don't want to be acting as if you're trying to entice or seduce the audience. Now, it's one thing if you're just beautiful and you look pretty and you want to just look beautiful and be pretty, but actually that sort of attention grabbing is a little bit different when you're showing more parts of your body, when it's almost like you're trying to act like you're having some kind of sexual interaction with the camera, right? So that's a little bit different, and you have to be careful with that, because I always tell women, the more you act sexy, dressed sexy, carry yourself in a sexualized way, just be prepared and learn how to turn it down when you get that attention. If that's not what you want, there's a conflict there. You can't actually want attention but not not actually accept it when you get it, if you know what I mean. Like you sort of get offended when somebody maybe sends you a dick pic or reaches out to you and has some kind of sexualized message, but you were just on your video rolling around in your thong, like licking the camera. So you can't have it both ways. You have to understand you carry yourself, you know, in a certain way. Being sexy and beautiful can be done in a tasteful way so that one, not all of that's going to be prevented, but at least you're consistent, you're congruent, you're making sense. You know, save that for your bedroom with your partner, your lover. And don't do that, especially not expecting any kind of negative attention in return. And then also learn how to shut it down. Learn how to be direct. I have all these people that come to me for advice, and what they reveal to me is some sugar-coated, indirect, you have no idea what they really mean type of messages, instead of saying, I'm sorry, I'm not interested, I appreciate it, but please don't message me again. Or if you have a boyfriend or if you're dating someone, like, I'm not available, I'm not interested, and I'd appreciate it if you don't message me. Keep it non-sexual, keep it professional. And it's only if they perpetuate that, if they keep coming back with the sexual messages or whatever, then it becomes more like harassment. But until you shut it down properly, you can't complain that they're responding to your slutty, highly sexualized enticement, right? Does that make sense? Give me some thumbs up or some comments, and I'll know if you're following me. So yeah, someone said in the comment that it's something about freedom. I think they were talking about casual sex being, they want to be free and live a life without consequences. And that's another really important topic to bring into the picture, because there are consequences for your behavior. And that's one of the things that I've mentioned time and time again. Young women need to recognize the importance of waiting, but you know, you don't need to rush to have sex. Like society, you know, feminism basically kind of encouraged this sexual liberation, and it really did work. Unfortunately, a lot of women went out and thought that it was okay to act like men and be sexually active at an early age and be more non-discriminate in their sexual practices. And so now, recognizing that all of those negative effects that I talked about before, high body counts, being unattractive to potential suitors that are good for long-term relationships, you having a difficulty with attachment and intimacy in those significant relationships, and well, obviously it's unsafe, so you're going to be more exposed to pregnancy, unwanted pregnancy, and STDs, but also just having a lot of negative, unhealthy interaction with people. Sex is one of the most meaningful, or should be one of the most meaningful things that you get to experience. And obviously it's meant to procreate, but I'm not highly religious, but I definitely have some strong standards and morals and values. Thank you, Ray. So in regards to that energy of just detaching from your body and not being able to have intimacy, emotional intimacy with someone, Amber, yes, completely. It's been pretty difficult to explain to other women. Thank you. I'll read most of it later. I'm going to try to stay on topic today as much as possible, but I do appreciate your comments. And, you know, that type of negative experience, you might not realize it's a negative experience at the time because it physically might feel good. Let me get a little bit real for you for a second. Now, I'm a trauma recovery specialist. As a therapist of 14 years, and my PhD, my doctoral dissertation was on sexual abuse. What happens in trauma is that a person, let's just say it's a woman, detaches her body from her emotions. So that's basically what's happening when you're having this type of promiscuous lifestyle. You're traumatizing yourself. And I don't know if that makes sense to you, but sexual traumatization can be done to oneself. And that is very hard to recover from. Why would people want to do that to themselves? Because they don't know any better. I don't think they're bad people. I'm not talking about actual offenders. I'm saying people that traumatize themselves sexually by separating the act of physical sex from the emotional and spiritual and mental component, the intimacy there, right? So over time, it's going to desensitize you to the process of sex. And even still, you need emotion in sex in order for it to be actually fulfilling and to feel good. So it's the balance, and that's why I go back to my formula. It's logic plus desire plus love equals an ideal partnership. And that's because there is a tension and there is an ease when you're with the right partner. And that is going to be the lust and the chemistry. And yes, you can ask. There's going to be that lust and that chemistry and that sexual polarity, but you also want to have that companionship, that compatibility, that it's not just a friendship, but it's that element of just being at ease with each other and that familiarity that happens. And so when you're able to sort of dance between those two elements, then you create a healthy relationship because you've got the desire, you've got the shared values, you've got the complementary personality characteristics. I've gotten into so many debates about introversion and extroversion lately, and I think it's very interesting. Now, I'm not a MBTI specialist, but I absolutely know that given all circumstances, an introvert and an extrovert can be beautifully paired together, and that's actually can be an ideal partnership. So definitely consider the whole picture, but don't look for the mirror of you in a partner. You need to have differences in order to fit really well together. So someone was going to ask a question about trauma, but going back to that desensitization to sexuality is very unhealthy and very dysfunctional, and it's going to perpetuate over the course of the person's lifetime. And so when do you meet someone that then you decide you want to be in a long-term relationship with? Who knows how long it will take, and the conditions would have to be just perfect. But the likelihood is that you're going to you're going to sort of end up, not intentionally vetting for, but just sort of happens because you're spending a lot of time having sex together in a relationship. And the likelihood is that it's not a great one. And who knows if you stay in it, you have kids, you keep going, or maybe it ends up blowing up in your face and they leave you, you're a single parent, whatever the case may be. There may be a couple of exceptions in the world, but as a marriage therapist in my 14 years of practice, the amount of couples that ended up in my room from bad beginnings, that's exactly how they got there. They vetted poorly, they didn't pick the right partner. Marriage works, long-term relationships work when you pick the right partner, barring unforeseen circumstances. I mean, of course, you can't have a guarantee that you're never going to get hurt, but if you don't take that risk, you're never going to get the reward of fully giving yourself over to someone and surrendering to that love and that commitment. I'll read it later. Sorry, I missed that. So I'm trying to be mindful of the climate, you know, in the public, now that I'm in the States too. I know people are highly sensitive about saying anything bad about a woman if she is empowered and having sex. You shouldn't slut shame her. And I'm going to maybe try to tread lightly. I don't know, I'm not too great at that, but shaming is good. Pointing out the consequences of your behavior and holding people accountable for their behavior is a healthy thing. And it doesn't mean that you lack compassion. It doesn't mean that you are discounting them as human beings. It just means that you're saying, okay, you've slept with 100 people, so therefore this is the consequence. You may have difficulty finding a partner. You may have difficulty bonding to a partner. You have so much baggage emotionally from all of that you need to sit down and really sort through that. And if you're not doing that and expecting life to just work itself out, you have like a surprise coming for you. And hello, the clock's ticking, right? So we need to be mindful of that and, you know, one, protect ourselves. Like I was just talking to someone who cut it off with a young lady, and she started flipping out. And the reason why he cut it off is because basically he realized that they wanted different things, that she was taking it to casually, and he wanted it to be something more serious and meaningful. And he didn't know how to tell her because he didn't want to be mean. And so my suggestion was, don't, it's not mean. Just say it neutrally. You can just say, I realize that we weren't a good fit. You're looking for something casual. I'm looking for something meaningful. And I don't think we value the same things. Because, selectivity is important. And you can say that and not be ashamed of saying that and standing up for your values. And you don't have to get belligerent about it, but just sort of, I think women need that feedback. Women, as much as they rant and rave and throw temper tantrums, most of them that are not able to self-regulate will probably react badly. But it does plant a seed in their minds that, okay, I don't want to be that. Women ultimately, underneath it all, even though feminism made us sex positive, women don't want to be slutty whores. So when they feel like someone is judging them as a slutty whore, they start to freak out. And they may actually think about their behavior differently and change it. And that's probably why people are so adverse to anything that sounds like slut shaming to them, because they don't want to face the consequences of their behavior. But ultimately, you can have a positive outcome in your life if you start to recover from that bad behavior. If you want to just think about it like any other bad habit. Fast food, lack of exercise, alcohol, cigarettes. There are lots of people who are former alcohol drinkers, they're former cigarette smokers, former weed smokers, former gamers. People recover from bad behaviors, and they no longer identify as those things, and they can move on and create a healthy life. So there is always a hope for you if you put in the effort and make it a priority to change it. But if you just sort of enable yourself and neglect the facts and stay in denial, then you can't then escape the consequences, is my point. So don't be afraid to point these things out, to take a stand, to make a judgment. You can still have compassion for someone and make a judgment, because it's a call that you're making in regards to what you want for yourself in your life. You don't need to date someone if you don't agree with their values, and you shouldn't. So I hope that was helpful for you today. I really appreciate you being a part of my first YouTube live stream, and I will follow up with some of your comments below, but don't forget to subscribe to my channel and reach out to me on my website and request a 15-minute discovery call if you want to touch base with me and see if we'd be a good fit to work together. So my website again is drtaylorburrowes.com. Ciao.